Hey, everybody. This is episode 4 of the Truth Seekers podcast. I am your co host, Dalton Cantrell, here with my friends Nick Carter, Josh, gosh, I always forget his last name, and Ken Moody.
We work together.
Oh,
right?
jeez.
That's what's up.
Man,
just
these
love
are my
each other
closest
here.
friends, and I don't know their names.
It's Josh Allen. What's
Josh
up?
Allen. There we go. Okay, so
The douche.
just
The
to
douche,
fill you
yeah.
guys in a little bit of what we discussed last week, we talked about a little bit about Kavanaugh. It's the first time we've done that. We wanted to kind of throw that out there so everybody could maybe catch up on some current events or things that they were unaware of. And then we also talked about the Senate race between Marsha Blackburn and Phil Bredesen. So today we're going to start off, and again we're going to throw some current events at you. And I just kind of wanted to explain to some people where I stand on this situation as an incredibly misogynistic male.
Subtweet.
I would like to bring to everybody's attention that last time on the podcast, one of the things that we discussed was that we will not make conclusions, or we won't come to conclusions until evidence is provided. And so this time around, I was thinking today about bringing some emotional appeal to the podcast. And so I wanted to explain to you guys how I felt about the situation. So I am deeply upset and deeply burdened at the direction in which our government is going right now. We are condoning and we are supporting slandering another man's name, ruining his character for the rest of his life. That's the way you have to look at it. And we're dragging he and his family and all their credibility through the mud now, all for the sake of the Republicans not having a majority in the Supreme Court. That's what this comes down to. Whether what he said in his testimony is true or false, whether what she said in her testimony is true or false, here's what it comes down to. The political rhetoric and the games that are being played by the Democratic Party have been to slander him from the beginning of this, to bring out the worst in somebody so that they will not lose the majority in the Supreme Court. And I am burdened by that because the fact that people think it's okay to ruin somebody else in the nature of a seat, to ruin somebody else's character, to ruin their credibility, all for the name of not giving up your political motives and for backing your political faction, let's call it a faction because that's what this is at the moment, is unnerving to me, and it upsets me as somebody who works in this political spectrum. And so I wanted to kind of bring that out to play and let you all know that what it comes down to nowadays and what we're seeing happening right now in the media, or what the media is showing us, is that it's okay to do these things. If you bring up these accusations about somebody, it's okay to completely slander who they are as an individual without actually having concrete evidence to prove otherwise. So you can call me misogynistic if you'd like. You can say what you want about me, and you can say what you want about my views, but what it comes down to is if you can't accept fact in front of you that there is not actual proof, but yet you're going to also try to name call me or other people who have this point of view, which is happening at a national level, I'd like to point out that you yourself also don't have the proof that you claim you do. And so you're contributing to the issue at this point, and the issue is that when there is a serious situation going on, how are we supposed to know whether it's truth or not if every time it happens, it goes to this level of the extreme without even having the evidence needed to go to this extreme? So before we move on, just to summarize all of that, it's not okay for our government to take a stance in ruining someone else's life and career for the sake of a political party or for the sake of a seat, and that's what this is. And if you can prove otherwise to me, I'd love to sit down and have a conversation. You can email me. I believe my email is on the website, or you can reach out to me personally, because I'd like to have that discussion. Because for me, it's to the point of I'm glad I removed myself from this environment. I'll put it like that. I'm glad I removed myself from the political environment I once was in, because if this is what it's coming to, I don't want to be a part of it anymore. So that's where I stand on this Kavanaugh issue as an incredibly misogynistic male in society.
Wow. There's a lot to unpack there. First, I would actually agree with what you said, for several reasons.
I'm sorry.
It's one thing if you're actually slandering his name after the fact. If you understand what has gone down, if you have the actual facts, if there was an actual court case that was held and he was found guilty, that's one thing. But we're speculating and we're jumping to conclusions before an investigation has even happened. I think that's a problem. That's a huge problem, and we're okay with supporting each other's views on that and speculations. It's, we're less concerned with what's going on logically, what's going on factually. We're more concerned with agreeing with like he said, a political idea. We're kind of falling into that faction, like he said. That's a great way to put it. It's really dangerous. I mean, we've seen the polarization since the 2016 election. I don't see it stopping anytime soon. But the individuals that are trying to look at this for what it is, we're crying out right now because we're seeing what's going on. We don't want anybody else falling for the same bullcrap that we're seeing right now. Because I know when I first got into politics, I found myself falling for stuff like this all the time. You have to step back and you have to look at what's going on here. You have to have civil conversation with people and stop with the name calling. That people are so quick to call names and jump at people's character before even understanding what their viewpoint is.
We're setting a very scary precedent. Not only is all of this contributing towards the continual divisive reality of our country, it's laying the groundwork for, in future examples and situations, for people to be presumed guilty instead of innocent, which has been at the bedrock of our republic since the very beginning, and is a very strong pillar in the Western canon. So it's very scary. It has the potential to shift not only America but Western culture towards something totally different. So, I think it'd be really cool to dive into some of the details of what happened this week. Our good friend Ken Moody has done a lot of research. He's very up to date with this stuff. So I'm going to throw it to Ken to see what he's got to say, what he can bring to the table.
Yeah, so there's been a lot of developments since we talked last week. Since y'all had me on, I appreciate that. I love you guys. Y'all are great to be around, good friends. I'd call on y'all if I needed anything. And but this situation is really developed. I don't think I mentioned on the podcast, but before the podcast last week, we kind of talked about, I was thinking, and y'all were thinking too, that there's going to be another accuser between that time. And sure enough, we saw some come out over the weekend. It was like 2 more or 3 more, 4 more, depending on who you ask. And so we've seen, this Deborah Ramirez, that was a classmate of Kavanaugh's at Yale, allegedly, or she was in high school or something like that. And he exposed himself and put his penis in her face
At a party.
Right. It's just ridiculous,
Or wasn't there something said that none of the stories actually matched her story exact?
There's no
All of
corroborating
the-
witness.
Yeah, exactly.
There was a
In that
60 alumni petition that was signed against her, right? Saying
Yeah,
that she wasn't
it's like
even
65.
involved.
Yeah.
She wasn't even involved in that class, or
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And then the creepy porn lawyer, Michael Avenatti, brought up this Julie Swetnick lady who went to 10 parties over the course of, I think it was like a year or two. Maybe it's just one summer. I can't remember exactly. But she went to these parties and she alleges that Brett Kavanaugh and his best friend, Mark Judge, would drug the alcohol, whatever they were drinking, to gang rape the girls and run a train on them.
Quote unquote.
Quote unquote.
Quote unquote.
I mean, that is their words, not mine. And I mean, you think about it, okay, you go to one party like this, you see this happen, do you not have a responsibility to tell somebody what's going on? You know, do you not care about these women that it's happening to? And the funny thing is that she didn't even say it happened to her, she said it happened to other women. And yet she's his accuser. And she went to like 9 more parties. I mean, who does that? I mean, anybody with common sense can see that her allegation is just not credible, and no one's corroborating it either.
What was the year that she said this happened in again? I can't remember.
What was
What
it?
was the year?
I think it was 84.
I think it was 84, but I think she said that she went to all of their parties between like 82 and 83. Don't quote me on that because I can't remember, but I'm pretty sure she said that between the years of 82 and 83, she attended almost every one of their parties. And yet, if this kind of stuff was going on, why would have she gone back again to these parties? And again, I'm not blaming her because if this happened to her, it happened. But still at the same time, where does common sense kick in and go, you know, if this did happen? But looking from my standpoint, it kind of seems invalid, like you maybe couldn't get your information straight, and therefore that's why these stories are all twisted. But maybe that's just me.
Let's just say she was at all these parties. She's a woman.
Because I'm a misogynist.
She's a woman, presumably. I mean,
Yeah.
so was she being drugged?
Yeah, no, she said she wasn't.
So what was she doing at these parties?
Yeah, that's a good
Was
question.
she helping Brett?
That's a good question.
I mean, if you're a woman at this party and you're not being drugged, yet you know other women are being drugged, why are you not being drugged?
Well, yeah, I mean, you know people are getting drugged and you're not there. Or you're
And
there.
You're there.
You're like, you know they're getting drugged. You know that your gender is getting drugged,
God, no.
and you're showing up.
Yeah, just show there's a lot of holes
Just
in
the
that.
fact that you're even showing up, and you know, like, oh, well,
Well, to
there was
me-
leaked information
Why
that
would
they've
you-
been drugging at these specific parties, so I'm going to go directly to these specific
Well, and
parties.
to me, that ruins her. To me, that ruins her credibility along with everybody else's, because if you're telling me that they're a credible witness to the situation or credible to the scenario, but they continue to put themselves in these environments, that's absurd. Okay, that doesn't make enough sense to me. Actually, it doesn't make any at all, because if you knew these things were going on, but it didn't happen to you, but you kept going to the parties and then it did happen to you, to me, none of the stories line up. They all are telling different versions of the story, and that's what's bothering me the most, is that none of them are actually the same. They're all kind of just different fabrications of what actually is going on. Maybe that's just my interpretation of it, but
Yeah, I mean, I keep going down the rabbit hole here of logic with that one statement. I mean, okay, if you find out that, you know, there are women getting drugged at these parties, you know for a fact that there are certain individuals that are going to be at these parties that have been known to do that. Why wouldn't you be involved in stopping that or letting the other women know, hey, don't go to these parties, and they might actually stop having parties?
Right. Why not call the police?
Yeah. Well, hey, here's the interesting thing about this Julie Swetnick girl too. This is reported actually today on the. I'm looking at the Daily Caller, but they had an article, and they've said that Julie Swetnick, the third woman to accuse Brett Kavanaugh of sexual misconduct in high school, faced allegations from her former employer that she engaged in unwelcome, open quote, unwelcome sexually offensive conduct, end quote, in 2000. Web Trends alleged in a lawsuit that after the company determined she had engaged in inappropriate conduct, Swetnick made false and retaliatory allegations of sexual harassment against 2 male co-workers. Kavanaugh vehemently has denied her claims, and the creepy porn lawyer who's representing her called the case bogus about the Web Trends case and dismissed it.
Huh.
I mean, this lady has made false allegations in the past, and no one on the Judiciary Committee in the Senate was even really considering this as legitimate.
Let's
from
talk
what I
about
noticed.
how about the creepy porn lawyer? Why is he called the creepy porn lawyer?
Well,
Who is he
because
exactly?
he represented Michael Avenatti. He represented Stormy Daniels when they broke.
Another one.
Another one.
Porn star. He represented. So that shows my views.
What is
You'll
she-
be
who's-
another. Be careful. You'll be another
not
misogynistic
saying
male if
that.
you don't control
Hey
yourself.
Ken, so who is Stormy Daniels?
So she alleged she's this lady that during the 2016 campaign, well, it was actually after President Trump went into office. She alleged that he had had sex with her, and for some reason she thought it was important to say that he did it without a condom. Like, why even mention that? It's just like, but it's so extra. She alleged this, and Michael Avenatti was representing her and kind of just pimping her out. I mean, showing her around to the press media, getting some attention. I really need to stop with the puns. I'm going to get us in trouble. But, and
say with your chest.
it's just one of those things that it's just a he said, she said. She was paid money for a non-disclosure agreement, and that happens a lot to keep people quiet when they try to make allegations, regardless of whether it's true or not. I mean, this happens a lot.
We talked about it last time where people create settlements because
Right.
it's like there's no. We talked about this last time where people create settlements because there's not actual proof again to claim that somebody's guilty, right? But they settle on these things because these people won't shut up and quit saying the stuff that they were saying. Okay, what is quit? They won't quit saying the things that they were previously saying. Sorry, my coffee hasn't kicked in yet.
Did you say queet or queef?
So the idea here is that if there was some sort of settlement with Stormy Daniels, and then there's any kind of settlement further on in the Kavanaugh case, does that go to prove that maybe there wasn't actually enough proof, but they wanted to settle to kind of end the conversation for the time being? And I'm not saying that's what they're doing, but in my mind and from my research, most of the time in settlement situations, it's because there isn't enough proof to say that that person is guilty. Therefore, they want to move on with it, so they settle.
Right. Yeah, so that's who Michael Avenatti is. But to kind of go through...
He also said he was going to run for president, I
Yeah,
think.
he is running for
Yeah.
president. If you go to
Yeah.
his Twitter account, I think it's at Michael Kavanaugh. You can see his plan.
How do you spell it?
Do you know how to spell
Who
it? Ken?
cares? He's
I
not.
don't know.
He's irrelevant.
He's
irrelevant.
pretty much irrelevant. But
He's
anyways, we had... so you had these other women come out and make allegations.
Tweet.
And then yesterday, we finally had the hearings, right? We saw Dr. Christine Blasey Ford go first. And I thought one of the interesting things that they grilled this prosecutor, the Republicans decided they made the smart move to bring in this prosecutor from Arizona that has made a career out of trying sex crimes. And they brought her in, and she was doing it because the media would be all over 11 white male men questioning a woman. We'll get to what some of the media have been saying about that in a little bit. But she famously said this past week, that she couldn't make it on Monday because she was afraid of flying. Well, come to find out, this woman's been flying all over the world for years.
On vacation, right?
It's easier to fly on vacation, but when I have to come to a hearing at the Senate chamber, I can't do it.
I'm scared.
That could bring somebody to justice. That ruined my life, apparently.
And I'm using that voice
Gotta
of
get my
jest.
story straight, you know?
Yeah. But I mean, this lady was lying. I mean, obviously, about this. And then you had the whole issue of the letter that she sent to Dianne Feinstein's office being leaked to the press. And, it was either Feinstein's office that leaked it, or it was the lawyers that Ford hired. And she hired Deborah Katz and Michael Bromwich as her lawyers, and Deborah Katz was recommended to her by Dianne Feinstein, and that was admitted under oath. And they had the prosecutor, she had to kind of get that out of her. Had to pull teeth.
So that was made clear.
Yeah, that was made clear under oath.
So it was Feinstein's lawyer recommendation.
Yeah, Deborah Katz was.
What-
Here you go.
what-
Since you're talking about Kavanaugh, I want you to
The Washington.
go ahead and put that out there for the public, okay? Go
Okay,
ahead.
so Dalton just handed me a poll that the Washington Times did, and it says, poll, do you find Christine Blasey Ford credible? 311 people said yes. 4,170 people said no. 181 said not sure.
But it was probably all Republicans that voted in that, though, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. No, it's cool. Incredibly misogynistic, man.
Wow.
Yeah, well, you know. And this Deborah Katz lady has some connections with the Clintons. Some pictures have surfaced, and I think she's done some work for them. And it was interesting. I was watching, before I came over here, I was eating dinner and kind of listening in to Tucker Carlson on Fox News. I like Tucker. He's funny. He brings on a lot of people with opposing viewpoints, and I appreciate that about the show. It makes it worth watching. But he was showing a lot of stories and clips of where people on mainstream media, even on Fox, have been saying, you know, the guests on Fox have been saying that, that Kavanaugh is inherently wrong, that he's automatically wrong because he is male and he is white and he is privileged. And it is because of his race that, that he's automatically guilty.
Wow, what interesting keywords. It doesn't fit into the narrative at all.
So this is just going to be a little
It's ridiculous.
curveball or something to make your head spin real quick. Has anybody ever thought that potentially she was assaulted, okay, but maybe she was not assaulted by Kavanaugh, and so because they went to the same school and because maybe she was at some of those parties, they tried to pick out somebody that was assaulted and then fit her narrative to his narrative, therefore they could take down this potential confirmation. Again, that could be a conspiracy theory at the most, but I mean, let that sink in though. I mean, that's not absurd. You know what I mean? That's not absurd at all, and that's not something that hasn't happened prior. So they could have really picked somebody out of the crowd that has been sexually assaulted, taken advantage of somebody's actual issues going on in their life, and tried to paint their story out to be something that they needed it to fit their narrative so that they can prevent this from happening. So I even know people out there that have posted on Facebook and have said this numerous times. I believe based on her story that she was assaulted, but I find it hard to believe that it was at the hands of Kavanaugh. You know, like this might have happened at the hands of somebody else, but just because Brett Kavanaugh was at the same party doesn't mean that it makes him guilty of the situation.
I find it interesting that, you know, she didn't try to have an investigation before publicizing this.
Be careful saying that. Jeez.
I mean, why would you publicize something that you're not sure of? Unless it was too...
Well, supposedly she didn't want it publicized. She wanted it to keep anonymous.
So she
They've
told
changed
her
their
husband
story.
and her psychiatrist or something
So,
like that.
so we're saying somebody's most likely using her on her side.
Right.
To
That's
fit
what
the
it appears
narrative.
like.
To me, it seems as if she's probably been assaulted in some way, and the details of the event are similar, probably very similar to her account that she gave in the hearing. But you can't deny the fact that the Democrats have an agenda here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They
that's
definitely
true.
don't want Kavanaugh to be confirmed. That's for sure. They've already said they don't want him in there.
Yeah.
It's obvious. We're bipartisan. We're a partisan now democracy, but republic. Thanks, Dalton.
That's just the Joe Biden
Oh.
thing I was talking about.
But yeah.
But essentially, it seems that the Democrats are painting their narrative onto an
course,
actual event.
Because again, it has to fit
Sure.
the narrative.
Yeah.
Remember we discussed this the last time, everything always has to fit their narrative. Because if it doesn't fit their narrative, then it doesn't justify the actions that are happening.
Okay, the individual that is the victim in this situation, or we don't know if they're the victim or
The
not.
hell, they're both the victims.
They're both the victim.
They're both being taken advantage of.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying though. Like this individual didn't want to publicize it, and it has been. You're very clearly seeing the questioning very aggressively on both ends here, really actually just one end. I haven't seen that aggressive of questioning on the Republican side in this entire hearing, because they know that this is ridiculous. But I feel like, yes, I've gotten a little defensive on the whole situation. Yes, I need to show a little bit more sympathy for this person. But it's just ridiculous how we're still having the conversation and pointing fingers at individuals that are just being skeptical of the situation until they get the facts.
Yeah.
Right.
Like we have every right to be skeptical
Right,
of this
and
right
it's
now.
sad. It's sad that a lot of people out there that might not even support Kavanaugh. For instance, I wasn't a fan of Kavanaugh in the first place, as far as he wouldn't have been my pick. But the fact that I've taken heed and not decided to jump on the bandwagon of denouncing Kavanaugh, all of a sudden I've become a supporter, or I've been allocated into the wagon of supporters for Kavanaugh, even though that isn't what happened.
Real
And
social justice.
exactly. And so it's kind of sad that here's the thing: there's two sides right now. You either one support Kavanaugh, you either one denounce Kavanaugh and don't support his confirmation, or you support him. And that's kind of sad, because what about the people in the middle that are kind of like, well, again, I'm waiting for proof to come forward. Exactly. And I mean, if you are skeptical of these things, what is so bad about you having a skeptical point of view about this situation? I mean, again, we are called to be innocent until proven guilty. Is that correct?
In the United States.
In the United States, that is something that it's been stated multiple times. You are guilty. You were innocent until proven guilty, but all of a sudden with this, you're guilty until proven innocence. And it's ridiculous that we have to deal with things that way, because that automatically skews everybody's point of view in society. That's why it gets worse every time these cases happen. Everybody either wants to let go of the issue and is just like, oh my gosh, I'm so tired of seeing this, or they're already on his back and they don't even know anything about him. All they did is watch some little interview or watch something on CNN or MSNBC or something, and if you're watching these one-sided stories, you're not really paying attention to what's really going on. And that's what I was addressing in the beginning, was that the fact that, to me, what we need to address is the fact that they're using this political grandstanding to literally remove a man that probably hasn't done anything wrong, but they're trying to tack a story to him to fit their narrative. That is sad that we have stooped that low, and we have stooped that low to elect these inhumane individuals to political office.
Right.
That's what it comes down to.
Well, yeah, it's getting pretty ridiculous. I think we mentioned it last week that we saw a little bit of this with Roy Moore when he was running for Senate in Alabama. But the hearing, talking about the facts, Kavanaugh has already had 6 background investigations into him by the FBI. He's already been investigated by him 6 times. He's denied the allegations vociferously, unequivocally, without pause. Everybody that that Dr. Ford has named as a witness has denied the incident. And it's like y'all were saying, it's almost like this is becoming a test event for this idea of, we're going to switch it to now you're guilty until you can prove that you're innocent.
That's interesting that you said a test event. So to
like
see
a
how the
test
public handles a case where we're going to make the narrative that he's guilty initially.
That's right.
Before, and then he's gonna have to prove that he's innocent.
And you saw Lindsey Graham kind of explode about that on the floor,
which is kind of shocking because he hasn't typically been conservative or constitutionalist. He's been on the war hawk.
The
neocon. McCain and him, had their buddy situation. Now all of a sudden, McCain's no longer in the fold. As you told me last night, you made this connection, and now Lindsey Graham, he's very adamant. Yeah, he's very different. He's very outspoken against this, and it's kind of surprising. So
yeah, it really is.
He has no spine, but all of a sudden, because this comes from somebody, Lindsey Graham. the prior president pointed out that Lindsey Graham didn't have a spine. The current president pointed out that Lindsey Graham doesn't have a spine. And now all of a sudden we see this guy that is starting to stand up for things that he sees as injustice. And now people are like, oh my gosh, it's about time. Well, here's the thing though. He's another political opportunist. You see what I'm saying? Because in their situation, they've got to. I mean, I'm not going to let the Republicans get away with it as well as, or as I would the Democrats in an equal manner. Both of them have contributed to this. There's too much factionalism that happens in politics. And because of that, everybody just falls to the fold and is willing to do whatever they have to do to fall to that fold. And that's what he's doing now, because he's like, well, hell, if I don't support this and support this candidate, then my career's done. Then I'm not going to be supported by other Republicans when I have to go to the polls. That's what this is. So, I mean, not that he didn't do the right thing by standing up for it, but you're a little too late, Lindsey Graham. You're a little too late.
That is most likely the case. You know, if I were a betting man, I would say that's exactly the situation. But you know, I do find it interesting. Ken pointed this out to me last night. We were at Starbucks until like 11 o'clock. And, you know, he starts, obviously, this change is connected to this event, right? The accusations during the nomination process, their confirmation process, but also post McCain's death.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't want to speculate too far, but it's interesting to, you know, they were very similar in their beliefs.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden he's gone and he's different.
Well,
Yeah,
okay,
it's
just to
very
kind
odd.
of cue in on what he was saying. Lindsey Graham showed up and basically killed the entire strategy that they had. They had hired a prosecutor to basically question for the entire Republican side, and he butted in.
I think that was planned.
I don't know.
I think they've seemed very cohesive during this whole process. They've got their main speaker, the guy who's running the case. They got, what's his name?
Oh, the chairman of the Judiciary
chairman of the
Committee,
Judiciary.
Grassley.
Yeah, they got him speaking, and then nobody speaks. They have a lawyer, and then at the very end, they let what's his name? Mine's blanking. Lindsey Graham. They let Lindsey Graham have a little monologue. So I would presume that.
Well, yeah, to some extent it is planned.
I-
Yeah, to some extent it is planned.
they're also appealing. They're appealing to their base at the same time.
Yes.
It's like we're gonna be honest and fair. We're gonna have a woman prosecutor come in here and do this thing. We're gonna stay out of it for the most part.
They frame the situation.
But exactly, it's smart. I think
Yeah,
it's
of
very
course it
smart.
is.
And then at the very end, they just want to make sure this is what's going on. We're on your side.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay, I saw another smear piece from the other side that was saying that they essentially shut up the female prosecutor.
Oh my God.
They
Are you
yeah
I've
this
seen
was,
that. I've seen that.
they were saying that
Stop at nothing.
these white men
They'll
shut
fight.
her
Exactly.
up,
Oh,
and
yeah.
they found a way. They found a way to weasel themselves into a situation that fit the narrative.
Moral superiority. The Democrats have it.
Yeah,
They're
I think,
good. They're better than us. They are more godlike.
What is that? Virtue signaling?
Virtue
Yeah, that's
signaling.
right. But you know, Graham got on there today, I think, and was kind of fussing at him because he's, you know, like a 60-year-old, you know, white single male, you know.
He's single?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was surprised.
He's got a lot
I was
of time.
like,
hasn't he?
yeah. But kind of where we're at with this
Graham.
process now is Kavanaugh made it out of the committee. Kind of the hang vote on the Judiciary Committee was Jeff Flake, who is the other Democratic senator
No, he's a
from
Republican.
Arizona.
Oh, what? That's oh, I see what you did there.
Yeah.
I see
Yeah.
what you did there.
Yeah, McCain and Flake are two McStain.
The hell they doing in
You gotta
Arizona?
relax.
They were both
You gotta
Democratic
relax,
senators
be
for all
fun.
intents and purposes.
And they're both from Arizona.
Dude, you're gonna
Yeah.
get us, we're gonna get.
Yeah,
death
we haven't
right
had a
now.
good senator in Arizona since Barry Goldwater.
Yeah. Amen.
For any of you that don't know who that is, look up Barry Goldwater. Your life will
His
be
book
improved
is great.
1,000%. If you look up Barry Goldwater, I can promise you that.
But Jeff Flake, he kind of got cornered by some of the Dems and got pulled into this closed door meeting, and you know, God only knows what he was threatened with or what he was like. Yeah, let's plan this together.
Well, I mean,
guys.
but what does he have to lose, Ken? Because here's the thing: what does Jeff Flake have to lose in this situation when Jeff Flake is already on his way out?
Yeah,
You see what
exactly.
I'm saying? So Jeff Flake, again, why can't people look at the situation surrounding them and say, this is just something else that's being compiled on for the situation, but it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things, other than the fact that he is just falling fold yet again. See, he's doing what he has to do because he's on his way out. For someone like Flake, all he has to do is just ride this wave until it's completely over.
Well,
See what I mean? He has nothing to lose. Does he have an
there's
election
nothing.
coming
There's
up?
nothing keeping him from reneging on his demand for a week-long FBI investigation.
Right, and here's the thing. Okay, speaking of FBI investigations, I wanted to bring this up. So Joe Biden, back in 1991, I believe was the date, Joe Biden was the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, okay? And he, word for word, said FBI investigations into sexual misconduct allegations against the Supreme Court nominees were inconclusive. Quote from him: the next person who refers to an FBI report as being worthy or worth anything obviously doesn't understand anything. FBI explicitly does not, in this case or any other case, reach a conclusion, period.
So they
That
just-
came out of Joe Biden's mouth, okay? This could be used against Joe Biden right now and against the Democrats right now. So I think it's important, again, when we look towards Kavanaugh's case, how much of this is being thrown to the wayside? How much of this is something that really comes down to inconclusive evidence? You know, and that's what this is. Again, we'll probably end this week's current events with the fact that there is inconclusive evidence yet again.
Keep going.
I say we stick to it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think this is the most pressing issue of our time at the moment. So,
Okay.
I said we just keep rolling with it.
Well-
Ken's got some more stuff on his pad.
Okay, so what we're gonna
Yeah,
do?
we got a little bit more.
What we're gonna do? Because Ken has a lot of stuff. We're actually gonna push off the governor's
Yeah.
race until next week, okay? Because with a lot that's going on right now with the current events in Kavanaugh, I think it is extremely important that we go ahead and discuss Kavanaugh. Because here's the thing: this is stuff that's going to affect our future. As a matter of fact, on God, my girlfriend came up to me today and she said, you know, what's going to happen if you and I have a son? What's going to happen if for everybody that has a son out there in the future? How's that going to affect them? Okay, and that could be completely nuts, right? But the world that we're living in
not.
right now, young men growing up are going to be facing this for the rest of their life. If all it takes is a simple allegation to ruin you, can you imagine? I mean, what's it? That's what we're coming down to here, is that we're now accepting as society it is okay to ruin everybody or ruin a man's character and his standing in society if it's at the likes of whatever it pleases, whether that be the government, whether that be an employment opportunity, whether that be just a power play in general.
Yeah, male or female. I mean,
Exactly.
it's
It's sad. That's what this is. It's got, for people that want to point out things like white male privilege and stuff like that, I want you to try to apply that to this scenario right here, because if you're a white male, apparently, at least in the political realm, and something like this is put up against you, you fail almost 90% of the time. Look at all of the other males that have got in trouble for some sort of sexual misconduct, like Anthony Weiner, okay? These people don't have a life anymore. Their life has been ruined because of these things. And the ones that are guilty, it's just,
Yeah.
okay? But how many people are we going to throw under the bus before we find a just scenario?
It's
And
an
that's what we're in.
Yeah, I mean we're looking at an overcompensation here. If this keeps going on, the authorities, anybody that would go into the investigation that is willing to support, you know, a potential victim, they're going to look at it as a boy who cried wolf situation. That's exactly what I mean, look, in the industry that I work in, this may be anecdotal, but it's just a perfect analogy for me to kind of wrap my mind around this. So I basically sell life safety security systems, burglary alarms, and fire alarms systems, basically. In our industry, we see a 95% false alarm rate. That's what we send to dispatch, to the cops, to EMTs. 95%. What we've noticed is that the police are actually rolling out to this location a lot slower. when they get this information. They get it from dispatch. And in our industry, you know, we're working to combat that right now. One way that we have is with video verification, so you can actually see it and they can prioritize the visit. They can roll out there at 90 miles an hour as opposed to 40 miles an hour. You know what I mean? But just to kind of get back to the point, looking at a 95% false alarm rate, they're rolling out there slow because they have no urgency to go out there.
They're presumed to not have an event.
Exactly. They're presumed to not have an event happen, even with an alarm system and individuals that are speaking to the individual, the potential victim in this case, right? The resident's home, or even a small business, right? They're not rolling out in that situation. This is a similar situation with what's going on right now. It's becoming a boy who cried wolf situation. People aren't even going to want to be involved in this industry anymore. Like our good people are not going to be involved in this. They're going to go straight to politics. They're gonna skip out on being an investigator because they're like, wow, what's the need? I feel like I'll be wasting my time possibly.
And it, you know, I think it goes right next to, or slides right with your analogy, is, you know, false claims discredit true claims.
Yeah. Well, yeah. In this situation,
Yeah.
false
So
alarms, exactly.
the false alarm of, you know, for all of the cases where a woman was sexually assaulted, you know, how many cases was there the woman lying? That's something we don't know, but we do know it happens.
Yeah.
And
We know it's a thing.
It's a thing. It happens.
Yeah.
And it's
So
deterring a lot of people.
it's hard to tell. It's really hard to tell what's true, because I mean, most people in their heart want to, like, they don't want, they just naturally feel sympathy and empathy
Exactly.
for a woman who's coming out saying they've been sexually assaulted.
Yes.
But when there are situations where the legitimacy of their claims are very, very faulty,
Exactly.
and then in some cases proven to be wrong, it adds a little bit of a split in the heart.
Yeah,
It-
and
the
that's
brain
where-
starts to take over instead of the heart, and
That's
know,
where you see these overcompensations on both sides. We're not, you know, this can be true to our side as well. I'm sure, you know, we've fallen victim to overcompensating in this situation too because we're defensive about it.
Mhm.
But that's kind of the point I'm making. This is happening on both ends of the spectrum, and if one of us doesn't stop, look back at the situation and say, hold on a second, how can we be reasonable again? How can we have a civil discussion, trust the process, you know?
in order to do that,
We're
you
nev-
have to want the truth.
Exactly. You're going to have to want the truth. It starts out with civil conversation, right? It
Right.
starts out with, you know, laying down your weapons, stop the name calling, and actually have a discussion with us.
So for those people who are not wanting that and have already presumed the guilty, you know, what does that say about them? Are they unwilling to have civil discourse with people who are skeptical? You know, that's not good. That's not good for
It's
a
not.
republic. That's not good for any
Yeah.
country that has democratic values. And what I to kind of wrap that train of thought up.
Yeah.
This, you know, this particular case, it's so mainstream that it is amplifying the what is it, the
Polarization.
not even the polarization, the confusion of knowing who to believe.
Yeah.
It creates doubt. This is creating doubt on a magnitude
Yeah.
that only can be done through
Yeah.
the Senate.
We're literally standing on unstable ground.
So the
right now.
Democrats who are pushing this, you know, their cause is supposedly to support the Me Too movement, support all women who come out with these claims.
Yeah.
They are directly contributing towards the opposite happening.
Yeah.
They're contributing
Yeah.
towards people not believing the claims because they're putting this charade in front of everyone.
What else is going? I mean, what else could be going on right now that's a bigger issue that we're not paying attention to because we're talking about this right now?
Well, yeah. So there's a couple of things. Well, one in particular that you haven't heard about in about a week really is the FISA release. You know, that's been kind of punted back. The meeting with Rosenstein, Trump's meeting with Rosenstein, has been pushed back. You know, so all this stuff's been pushed back so as not to kind of taint what's going on. But I was watching today. I got off of work and got home, was, you know, just kind of relaxing, and saw where Mitch McConnell was on C-SPAN. He was in the chamber on the floor, and he said at about 5:15 Central Standard Time in the Senate that He claims that they have all 51 Republican votes right now. That's what he was saying. And I thought he was about to go up there and they're about to vote and just disregard Jeff Flake's condition on voting Kavanaugh through the Judiciary Committee, was that they have to have this shortened investigation, FBI, that can only last up to a week. And, you know, I was like, wow, they're just going to forego that. But it was a little misleading the way I saw it reported online. And so I think Mitch was just trying to pump everybody up, I guess. I got a little excited about Mitch, but then it kind of died down. So it's
probably better optics not to push it through at this point because the FBI investigation has been prompted.
Yeah, we'll make it fair.
Yeah, I mean it wouldn't look right.
Yeah, exactly. But
well,
we'll make it fair.
It would look bad to push them through as the FBI investigation opens.
Sure, but what are they going to find this week?
That's true. That's
what's
right.
going to come out.
We'll see.
And you know, it's there's kind of, that seems like one of the purposes, could be one of the purposes of this is they're just delaying it further. The next session of the Supreme Court starts, I guess, was it Monday, October 1st? And, you know, they don't want him on, they don't want a conservative majority on the court. I don't know what cases are in session, but you know, it's just getting ridiculous. Jeff Flake is just, he's flaking out. He's being a flake like he usually is.
His name precedes him.
Yeah, it sure does. And, you know, I think we'll see the vote happen, you know, Friday, probably at the earliest. But, you know, that's really what's been going on as far as where the process is at, kind of what the facts are.
So we're waiting until Friday, right? Trump has put a cap
Yeah,
on the amount
delayed
of
it.
time,
They
the amount of
delayed
time that the FBI investigation can go on.
Yeah, the
So
FBI
here's-
didn't want.
So here's the thing,
Yeah.
though. Before we dig into that, before we dig into like after the delay and what we think is going to happen, what would y'all do in this situation? What would y'all's? And I know I told y'all that I had an epiphany about this today at work. So I want to hear what you guys would do if you were in this position and if you were advising on the situation. What would you tell these people? What would be your plan of action moving forward?
If we're an advisor or Kavanaugh.
Not Kavanaugh, because he has his own things to deal with at the moment.
Yeah.
And I guess so. I'll go ahead and I'll start from here because to kind of give you an idea of what I'm talking about. If I were the Republicans, okay, and I'm not going to be a Republican that falls fold because I never have been. So what I would do is I would basically let Kavanaugh know, look, we can't back you anymore, all right, because this is horseshit, and we've dealt with this way too long, and this is going to make us look bad. If we fall fold and we confirm you, we're going to look like we just did what Trump wanted us to do, okay? I would want to separate myself from the party in that sense and stand for something a little different than party, and that's called integrity. And I would be looking for finding another candidate to put up. Here's why, though. Because if they're to put up another candidate and the same shit goes down, then we know that this was all done as a political ploy to remove whatever the Republican candidate was that was put up to office so that there would not be a majority in the Supreme Court. Does that make sense?
Do you think that is worth the risk of
I
the
do
Senate
think it's worth,
flipping?
yes, I do think it's worth the risk, because in my mind, what I'm afraid of is we're going to put somebody, if we did confirm somebody like Kavanaugh, this is going to continue to carry on. It could potentially, and I could be wrong, but this kind of stuff could potentially carry on after the Senate elections in general. So at that point, what good have we done? You see what I'm saying? At that point, we've done more damage than good. But if we go ahead and settle and we tell Kavanaugh, look, we've got to split ways, we've got to part ways because of what this is doing to our party. Think about how these Republicans will be labeled from here on out if they do confirm Kavanaugh, and let's say that he is guilty. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Let's say that Kavanaugh is guilty. It's going to look like they condoned his behavior, and that's going to be a stamp that's left on them forever. And check this out. That's going to be bait for the left to use in the future when campaigning against these Republican candidates in office. Do you see what I'm saying? And so at this point, I would rather go with a candidate maybe a little bit less qualified, hell, maybe even a female, okay? Go against their play sheet. Pick a Republican female and put her up for that seat and say, you know what, try to come at us this time with some of your horse shit and let's see how it goes down. Because here's the thing, I'm a firm believer they're doing this to take down the potential majority. I don't think they're really trying to do anything other than character assassinate Kavanaugh. That's what they're doing at this moment.
So if that's what they're doing, then, and what we know is
Well,
that,
because,
hold on, if that's what they're doing, and we know that there is no evidence at this point to point to Kavanaugh being guilty, I don't really see how it would look good in turn for the base, for the Republicans that are just citizens who are going to be voting for these people. They're looking like the source of reason right now. So if they were to just kowtow to the Democrats, get on their knees, and do exactly what they want them to do.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Are we more concerned with the fact that they're going to bow down to the Democrats, or are we interested in the fact that they would actually potentially please more of the voting populace by removing a potential controversial candidate to office and putting somebody else in their play? Because how much better would it be if we put up a Republican female who held the same values, where we're playing against their playbook and they couldn't use the same narrative to fit this person or this individual?
Well,
We
the
would-
people who
But the
would
tensions.
the people who would not vote, the people who are convinced Kavanaugh's guilty aren't going to vote Republican anyways.
Yeah.
If there are no, if you're convinced without any evidence,
Well,
it's
no,
likely,
You're-
for the most part, you're not going to
very
vote
liberal.
Republican anyways.
I understand that. I'm saying to avoid the long-term controversial issue that's going to happen
So-
if we do confirm somebody like Kavanaugh. Is it really worth the time? We could get another person in there who's a Republican who holds the same views as Kavanaugh,
Yeah.
but doesn't have as difficult of a background to skim
I think
through.
it might
Well-
be too late to do that.
Yeah, it could be. I've got 2 points to that. One, I'll say that how much of a sore spot is Clarence Thomas on the Supreme Court?
Yeah.
We never hear about Anita Hill. She's kind of gone off into the distance, so to speak, until this came up. And 2, if we remove Kavanaugh's, if President Trump says, well, we just need you to step back, we're trying to play the hand, or if it's just, this has just happened, and they revoke his nomination, that's going to enable this type of behavior that the Democrats are doing.
Right.
It's going to justify it for them to do it again.
It's a
and
tactic
again
that succeeds.
And again.
Yeah.
And we've already seen it succeed so much. But I just kind of want to leave y'all with those 2 final thoughts from me. But y'all carry on.
All right, Ken, thank you for coming on.
Yeah.
Thanks,
He's
Ken.
got to go continue studying for the LSAT.
Yeah.
He's a committed
Kick
future
butt,
lawyer, possibly
Thank you so much.
judge/president.
Hopefully
Who
not the
knows?
next Kavanaugh.
I know you're a good man, Ken.
And Moody, everyone. All right.
All right, there we go.
Assume the position. Wow.
See you, Ken. Do you mind locking the door?
Hey, Ken, we'll see you, buddy. I appreciate it.
Wow. Crazy. What were we discussing just now?
Dalton asked the question of what would you do if you were advising, I guess, the Republicans or Donald Trump in this situation, the party as a whole. How should they move on from this? How should they move forward?
Yeah, how should we move forward?
So, Dalton laid out his proposal of possibly, cutting their ties with Kavanaugh and revoking their offer to make him the Supreme Court justice. I've got, I laid out kind of like my rebuttal of that. So, Josh?
Yeah, I understand kind of where he's coming from. That could potentially pull out the rug from underneath them. I see where it's a very strategic chess move.
Well, it's not just strategic. It is, but I'm not looking at it from that standpoint alone. One of the things that I'm looking at also is the fact that I really don't think he's going to get confirmed.
Yeah.
It's not the fact that I don't feel like he's innocent, because I do feel like he's innocent, but I'm concerned that even if he is innocent, he's not going to be confirmed for the pure fact that it's going to be controversial no matter what.
It just
That's why
doesn't
I'm trying to
look good.
lay out a plan B. That's what you
Okay.
do in those situations.
Could you carry on with essentially after the vote for his confirmation, then just carry out your plan.
Yes.
Attack a different. So like, yeah, I mean, if it's clear that he's not going to be it can't be it.
Of course, then that would be the route that I would hope that they
Yes,
would
that
take
would be very
afterwards.
wise.
Yes,
That'd
exactly.
be so smart.
Exactly.
Get somebody so crystal clean. Shoot, a
And
woman.
get somebody that doesn't fit their narrative. See, Brett Kavanaugh fits their narrative, and that's what that honestly,
Which is unfair
should
because
be
he
the
could-
title of the series is what fits the left narrative.
Get us a Colombian woman in there. Get us
do
a
something.
Hispanic
I mean, we've
woman
got
in
to
there.
do something because here's the thing, and it hurts me to say we because I'm not a Republican.
Well, yeah,
but
yeah. That's
it bothers me that every person that we put up against for these positions or everybody that you support or potentially endorse, if they do fit that narrative, they're almost ruined from day one.
yeah.
You see
I
what
mean,
I mean?
at the end of the day, we're looking for the truth here. We're not.
Right.
It's not
Yeah.
necessarily when I say we, I just mean the truth seekers,
Truth
right?
seekers are looking for the truth.
Exactly.
Yes.
We,
Truth seekers.
the truth seekers, the
Turn my mic
skeptics that want to see the facts.
That's
We
too
want to
loud.
see
Damn.
history repeat itself in a negative way on the other side or whatever
Yeah.
side it is.
And you know, if we're after the truth, who cares what mouth it comes out of? You know,
Exactly.
if it's a white
This
man
isn't-
who's 50 years old, comes
That's-
from the upper class,
Yeah.
so what? This is exactly what we were talking about earlier. The agenda is that the white man is privileged and that he should not hold positions of power.
Yeah.
So if that's what they're attacking, it's not. I don't believe it's a wise tactical move to just let them win. It sets a precedent for the future, not just now. So, if you ask me, I think we should continue. What do you think?
I'm just not hearing you.
Is my audio good?
He told me to turn it down.
Mine?
Oh, is it?
Yeah, you're fine, dude.
Oh, I'm fine.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
I was just double checking.
Okay,
Oh,
I wasn't
mine
hearing
is
him
really
for a
loud.
second.
I'm
Sorry about
So, my advice would be to continue to just keep all of our cards in, and then if he were to not win, I mean, if the Senate does not confirm him, okay,
that.
move on
Recourse
from it.
action. Exactly.
You know, course correct. At least show your base that you did your best, so that the party doesn't fall apart.
Exactly. I mean,
I'm not, like I
If-
said,
look,
I'm not
look, if you-
Republican. I wish there were more than two parties, but the fact of the matter is,
you got to
there's
stick to
only
your
two.
guns. If you feel like this is the truth, stick to your
Right.
guns. Don't bow down to them. I understand what you're
Yeah.
saying. You don't want to what was the term? Kowtow.
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 I don't know where that term comes from, but I've heard it.
I just like the way it sounds. Honestly, I'm the guy that just likes to listen audibly as opposed to really what's going on here. I'm just here to point out observations on what I like. But anyway, what I was saying was, stick to your guns. Make sure that if you believe in the truth, stick to that. You know what I mean? Be reasonable about it. And I believe that's what's going on here. We're not just bowing down to them. But I definitely understand where he's coming from in this situation.
Yeah.
We don't want to be a part of this this polarization that's going on. We kind of want to be the voices of reason, right? We want to be involved in that civil discussion, see the facts that are laid out in real time. Don't just we're speculating right now, but we don't fully believe this is what's going to happen just yet.
Right.
You
Dalton
know,
is he's.
It's just
you're a
fun. It's fun to
political-
speculate, but
Yeah.
obviously we don't fully believe that's what's going to happen. We just, based on what's been going on, it's very easy to kind of infer that that could
We're
happen.
connecting the dots, and
We're messing around with ideas.
yeah, we're just throwing around ideas. So, and I think Dalton, your point was really interesting. The only thing that I would disagree with is to hold off on it.
Right,
Wait
right.
wait
Yeah,
until
yeah.
we know he's not going to get it,
And if we have to,
and if
course
if your
correct.
hands are if the hand is forced, you got to follow suit.
yeah.
So, yeah, what are we at on time?
It's 9:35.
So 1 hour exactly.
1 hour.
pretty much.
We're going good on time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
I
So-
mean, the only thing we can discuss a lot, but the best way to take this moving forward is going to be, we've discussed plans of action, but where are we going to move as a society? Okay, let's talk about this as a resounding effect on our society. And what are we going to do? I mean, where are we going to go from here? It's nice to get all loud and proud about your ideas and stuff like that, and that's what we've done prior, because I mean, I'm pretty sure we're all upset about this situation. But what it comes down to here is that how are we going to fix the situation? How are we going to move forward with this situation? Because we don't even really have a solution. We don't even know what to do at this point, because like I said, I don't live in fear that somebody's going to accuse me of these things, because I know I have a clean past. But what bothers me about this, and I go back to it, is that how much is this going to affect society in the future? What's going to happen in the future with males who are accused of these things? How is this going to work? Are males going to be automatically guilty until proven innocent?
Yeah.
You see what I mean? And so that bothers me. I mean, I know we can't talk about that a whole lot because there's only so much we can actually say on a hypothetical scenario. But more than anything, what does this case say about the rest of society? What does this case say about our future and the way that we look at things and judge things from here on out? Because I would be willing to bet that if when another candidate is put up to play, let's say we have a Democratic president after Trump, okay, and let's say that, you know, finally Ruth Bader Ginsburg is gone, you know.
How old is she? 85?
She's old as dirt. Let's just say that they want to fill her seat with another Democrat, because that would be what you would do. At that point, are the Republicans going to do the same thing? You know, I'm almost interested to see what's going to happen in that scenario, because I know Republicans slander, so I'm not saying that. I know there are Republicans out there that are slandering other individuals, right? But I'm almost convinced that if that's what it came down to, they would use a different tactic than ruining the person's life. Because here's the thing, that's a tactic that's been used by the left here lately in our modern political society in the last two presidents.
It makes sense with social media. It's really easy to sway
Exactly.
public opinion now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Throw out these emotional appeals. These
Yep.
these
It's
white
all
these
emotional.
leaders, these white men,
These white men.
they're taking advantage of women, and you know they're misogynists.
Yep.
They're
They're
the problem.
incredibly misogynistic males, like me.
Right.
Yeah, it's-
Don't have an accuser and
Yeah. We'll not. Yeah, let's not.
We won't even address that
We
right
won't
now,
even
because
address
anybody
subcommittee-
that knows me
subcommittee.
out there knows I'm not misogynistic.
it
So
was an online.
if you
comment,
truly
that's it.
believe I'm misogynistic, I'd like to talk to you about that, because I'd like to prove otherwise.
Okay. So back to what you were saying though. I was societally.
Yeah, how is this going to affect society?
Yeah. Okay, a few things here, and this is just this is like an overarching idea here. Just what I'm seeing anyway. This is obviously anecdotal. This is just my experience in the world, my very young experience. But I know a lot of immigrants that I'm very close friends with, and they're laughing at the situation right now. They moved to the United States because they saw opportunity. They saw economic opportunity, which is a conservative trait. A lot of people would agree with, especially financially. Somebody that takes pride in the economy that we've built up on a free market, capitalistic system, exactly. So they're laughing at what's going on right now because we're not following the process that we set up hundreds of years ago. They're laughing at that right now. They're laughing at the fact that we're kind of turning our back on what we said we were going to do hundreds of years ago, why they moved here. They're talking about going back home. It's like, well, shit, if I wanted to come to a country that was socialist, I would have stayed home. Or I would have just gone next door if they're European.
If they wanted a kangaroo court,
Yeah. So, I mean,
stay in China.
just starting there, I mean, I think that's interesting because we're looking at completely changing the script here. The voice of reason is not reason. The voice of reason is emotion now.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Everything
to
is
anybody?
based on emotional appeal at this point.
Yeah, and I'm a strong believer in the quote, a country that stands on emotion won't stand much longer.
Good job.
Because we need thinkers.
Good job.
We need our society to think critically. That's a great quote. I mean, it makes so much sense. If you have a society that does not think, the individuals can't think for themselves. They don't have original thought. You know,
Can't have discussion.
they don't. Well, yeah, and that's exactly our system. That's our country. You know, we're bottled inside for the most part. We're stuck in front of a phone. We're stuck in front of a screen in some fashion. We have our communications, our discourse, which is not civil. We have that over the internet, over online forums, and there's a great opportunity with that. But it doesn't really breed a cohesive conversation.
It doesn't. Well, it takes away masculinity. That's a masculine trait to be able to address an issue right away.
Yeah.
That's a masculine trait, and this is a very controversial thing that I'm
What are you
seeing right
making
now.
assumptions for?
Oh, shit.
Look, that is it's a masculine trait.
Okay.
You bring up an issue immediately. You want
Right,
to
but
squash
masculine doesn't mean that it's just something that males do, though, right?
Right.
it. Exactly. Men
Okay.
men and women can both do it. I'm just saying it's a masculine
You're
trait.
using masculine as a sense that it's
Because that's
a
what it
dominant
is. That's
trait. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, psychologically, that is a masculine.
No, I know. I was
Right.
just trying to
Masculine
wrap my hands
behavior.
around it or my head around it. God, I can't speak today. This
Yeah,
is
so
ridiculous. I quit. I should, because I'm getting ahead of myself.
But I mean, look. So we have social media that allows us to basically bottle up our emotions, be involved in another addiction because it's all about the dopamine rush that we're getting. Our receptors are getting all jacked up. We don't even have control over our own actions. A lot of people don't because they're so addicted to these screens, these black mirrors, right? Shout out to Netflix for that one.
Yeah.
But
Our sound people are laughing at us. Not because we're funny,
because you're self-amused.
stupid.
Anyway, like I was saying though, this is basically the society that we were raised under. We're raised under a society that allows us to be more feminine in our ways because we are easily swayed by everything that goes on. We are a very reactive country right now. Everybody is reacting to everything. We don't have control over our own narratives. We don't have control over our own lives right now.
right.
And we're feeding into the exact same thing. We're bottling up our emotions, and it's blowing up, and we're overcompensating left and right.
What's interesting is you say that it's almost like what you're saying is there's an attack on masculinity in our country, whether it's organized or not. Something is going on that is. Have you heard the term
It's a giant shit test, is what it is.
toxic masculinity? I mean, that's a common term now.
Toxic
Toxic.
masculinity.
Yeah, toxic masculinity. I've been accused of having toxic masculinity.
You got so much damn testosterone.
Because
You
I
make
work
people
out.
scared.
I work out too much at the gym. I have a hairy chest and a really big beard, so I automatically have higher testosterone levels than the average male,
Perfect
and so
target.
therefore I'm
You're a perfect
accused of
target.
my toxic masculinity. That's probably why I also get called misogynistic all the time.
Yeah,
apparently.
so I mean,
but
What a
well,
man,
here
what a man, what a man.
I got a question for you two, okay? So we'll just get back to the whole Kavanaugh thing. What do you guys think about this? This is going to be the 7th FBI investigation into one man,
Right.
okay? What more is it going to take? You know what I mean? What more is it going to take for them to figure out there might not be anything there? And what does it say about Trump that he was so willing to say, you know what? We're going to have another FBI investigation into Brett Kavanaugh before we move forward.
Some confidence.
What does that say about Trump? Does that show Trump's confidence, or does it show Trump's arrogance in the situation? How do you view it? Because to me, I kind of look at it as like, well, even if he is a little arrogant, it seems like he's pretty confident in his candidate that this stuff has not happened.
well,
At the same-
he's been advised on this as well.
Yeah.
Well, he
I
has.
guess
He
he's
has been advised on it.
I think he's afraid that he might not have the votes at this point. He's maybe afraid that the Republican senators their emotions have been swayed a little bit. They might not be convinced that she's telling the truth, but they might not know. They might not have that strong stance of we're going to vote yes on Kavanaugh. So it's like, all right, we're going to do this one more FBI investigation. They got a week. We
Yeah,
come
they
up
have
with
to
it.
give
It's
him
like
a week.
it's like a parent.
Well, you wanna hear
basically
something? He's trying to-
interjecting between his two
It's
kids.
fine, okay.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's like, okay,
he
but you've got
interjected between it.
you've got a week
Yeah.
to prove it. I mean, if you really want to prove it to me,
Exactly. It's
these are
like-
the guidelines.
It's like, okay,
Let's
so
go.
you have a week, child 1 and child 2, and then you're going to come back and you're going to propose the evidence that you found or the lack of evidence that you found, and then we'll base this off that decision.
Yeah, and the
You know,
individual that's
and
wrong
I mean,
is
I think
grounded.
that's a good idea, though. I really do. I
I think
feel like
that's
it is a
it.
good idea for them to be like, you know what?
Fine.
Prove it or disprove it. Go.
My biggest
You
fear,
got a week.
My biggest fear with the FBI investigation was that the Democrats who were calling for it, they didn't want a constraint on the time or scope of the
Well, yeah, 'cause
actual
again, they have
investigation.
to make
they
it fit their
wanted
narrative.
If they
They
allowed
wanted
for,
to prolong it.
exactly, if they
Yeah.
they wanted to have the FBI to have as much time as they wanted and come back when they were sure of something, which that could take months. And
Yeah,
then
but we don't
what
need,
do
we don't need months. on
Exactly.
this.
Then Kavanaugh's
That's
not going to be
ridiculous.
confirmed. So.
Yeah.
I think that's the point. That's what I was afraid of. And Trump and the senators, the Republican senators, they held their ground and said, okay, fine, we'll do it to prove or disprove whatever the truth is. We'll let you do it, but you only got a week.
So
I like that.
somebody
How
that
much
recently
is this?
came forward and said something about this was Mitt Romney. Have y'all seen this?
No.
Mitt Romney said, "I fully support the decision to reopen the FBI background investigation into the allegations made by Dr. Ford. It is my earnest hope that this will help inform the Senate and ensure the integrity of the Supreme Court." So look at it from that perspective. Maybe the best thing to happen is for them to investigate again. So then if they don't actually pull anything up, and when they don't pull anything up against Kavanaugh, then it ensures the integrity of the Supreme Court at the same time, right?
Right.
Because we're not putting somebody up there that's not going to be someone of high integrity. That's the point, all right?
There
But
will
at
be
the
no
same
question.
time, it's also going to inform the Senate of like what's going on. There won't be a question about whether he's the right candidate or not.
And
I like that point of view.
shuts up
Granted,
the
he's a more moderate Republican, so
Yeah, I mean-
if he is one at all, I don't know. You take that.
But I mean,
regardless.
I like it too because it shuts up the uninformed ideologues.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I mean,
Definitely.
it shuts them up.
Yeah, the week, that's enough time.
Just
to
give
carry
us
this.
give us a little bit of time to actually go through with the process that we already said we were going to go through, and then we'll have another meeting. We'll see what's up.
Right. Well,
But I think that's a great point to end on. We've
definitely.
definitely exhausted our ideas here. I thought
speak for yourself.
Exactly. Speak for yourself. I'm still ready.
Oh, Nicholas.
That's just,
Yeah, but okay. So I thought it was very productive. I mean, we were definitely all over the place. We were. It's definitely one that can spike emotion in anyone. We're citizens as well. We fall prey to the emotional attacks, and I think that everyone can overcompensate with emotion as well. I thought that our discussion today was actually a perfect example of what we were actually pointing out. Even somebody that likes to pride themselves on being reasonable, or 3 individuals or 4 individuals that pride themselves on being reasonable and even skeptical. If we can overcompensate, we can get to this point where we've gotten emotional. And it makes sense. But
I think our emotion is really just the energy driving our reason. I thought most of what we've said was,
yeah. I mean, we've always come back to it because it's what we pride ourselves on, right? And I feel like we've brought it back. We brought it back to reason. But obviously, like we're human. Everyone's human at the end of the day. Both sides. The last thing that we want to do is dehumanize anyone in this situation. We just want people to be involved. But just be after the truth, just like we are.
Definitely. I just wanted to lay down some quick facts before this was said and done. If that's cool. I did some research. I'm really sorry.
Oh no, you're good.
Okay, so
You're good. What's up?
In 2003, George W. Bush nominated Kavanaugh to the United States Court of Appeals in the D.C. Circuit. Nothing was said. In 2006, the United States Senate Committee on the Judiciary recommendation for his confirmation to the D.C. Circuit, Kavanaugh was confirmed by the United States Senate. She said nothing in 2006. Also, June 1st, 2006, Kavanaugh was sworn in by Justice Anthony Kennedy to the United States Court of Appeals. She said nothing. In 2012, she apparently remembered something happened in 1982, but the name Kavanaugh never came up. She still said nothing to the authorities about Kavanaugh. In 2017, she became known as an active anti-Trump activist, and here we are in 2018 with the stuff that's happened. So here's the thing. The only reason I bring this up is that this man is held in high regard, or he would not have had these positions prior, okay? So, again, I'm not saying that, I'm not bashing her bravery or anything if she is a victim, but in 2003, when this man was nominated by George W. Bush, probably the most hated Republican president up until Donald Trump, okay? If he was nominated in 2003 to the United States Court of Appeals, especially in DC, in the DC circuit, right? Why did nobody come forward and say something? Okay? Does it not bother you that the facts don't actually line up? Why did you wait for him to get to the Supreme Court? Because you really had no idea he was going to get there in the first place. You see what I mean? Why didn't you try to knock him down then? So,
he didn't pose
what
a
I'm
threat.
getting at here by presenting these facts at the end is that to summarize everything I have said up to this point, I find it to be most important to always approach everything with fact. And if you don't have fact, then I believe you have no say. If you have been assaulted, you have the right to come forward and say who assaulted you and make the accusations of who you think assaulted you. But if nothing is proved that they assaulted you and there's no evidence to prove that that said person assaulted you, something has to be done about that situation, because we can't continue to go on and ruin individuals and ruin their lives based on fictitious stories where someone believed it was so-and-so when they were surrounded by hundreds of people. You see what I'm saying? So that's what it comes down to for me, is that make sure we get our facts straight, make sure we set the record straight for everybody. None of us here are misogynistic males. We all are just skeptical of the situation, because I'm not going to be another one of the sheep and jump into the fold and go, you know what, I'm just going to believe whatever it is that I hear. No, I'm going to stand away from the rest of that, and I'm going to wait until things are proven, and then and only then will I begin to form an opinion and choose who I want to back and where I want to stand.
Good conversation, folks.
So next week, what's going down next week?
Next week we're going to cover the gubernatorial election in the state of Tennessee. Originally we had planned to do that this week, but the Kavanaugh situation held higher president, so we focused on that today. But yeah, moving on next week, you know, we'll probably cover whatever happened with the case, but
Yeah,
we're gonna try to
keep it short.
Yeah, keep the short, unless it's crazy, folks.
Yeah.
Who knows?
We might have to
but
do an extra.
I know. Who knows?
We might have to just for
Just-
this.
Yeah, stay tuned.
Hockey.
We're either gonna
We're
do
gonna
the
figure it out.
gubernatorial race of Tennessee, or we're gonna continue with Kavanaugh. It really just depends, and maybe a hybrid. So thank you for listening. Seek the truth, bro.
Bye.
Later.
We hit it up there. Zoom. What does he have to do? Hit X?
There's an X.
It's X.
Yeah.
Peace.